As I mentioned before, I have quite a busy week this week, so I thought I would do a video just replying to some of the, shall we say, more robust comments of the last few days, hopefully in ways you find entertaining and thoughtful in some way or another. I will throw in a couple of more thoughtful comments as well, once the fire and thunder has been dispensed with. Okay, here is a comment that I received, believe it or not, on Christmas Day. I think it was on the video about Trump's court situation. I'm not sure about that. Looking back, doesn't really matter that much, as you will see. Captain Kirk 5528. Damn. Until I watched this, I thought you were an intelligent, reasonable person. Unsubbed. Now, why would you comment on this, Malin, you ask? There are two reasons. One is that it's the sort of comment that you see occasionally, and generally you just ignore them. Sometimes, though, you think about the person who made it and what it says about them and what they might be experiencing right now. I wish people would understand that they have other options than to leave comments like this. Clearly, this person is angry and offended, maybe because I said something in the video that he didn't agree with. However, in spite of him claiming to put value on intelligence and on reasonableness, which would be a good reason to watch this channel, I would hope, he's not telling us what he disagrees with. He's not intelligently or reasonably making an argument to explain his displeasure, maybe even change my mind or draw my attention to a factual error that I've made that I could correct. He's just saying, you said a bad thing, and now I'm off. This has become a common style of discourse, more common than people actually saying things like, I think you're wrong about X because, at least going on my comment sections. Are we losing this skill? I mean, really, this basic, fundamental conversational skill? It says that his definition of intelligent and reasonable is someone who totally agrees 100% with him. The first time it isn't true, he'll throw a strop and storm out of the room. This suggests a lack of resilience and tolerance in this person, but if that is the case in their offline life as well, it's going to give them real problems in the course of their real life relationships. Which of course is a shame for him, but it's also a problem if it's becoming something of a new norm. Now sure, you can indulge meanness online, especially when you're hiding behind an anonymous handle, knock yourself out. I mean, honestly, I find these sorts of comments as mildly amusing to funny, depending on the exact detail. But you know, the fact you were online on Christmas Day, posting this comment and presumably others on other channels, kind of adds to the sense that you're not personally in a great place right now. I don't know you, I don't know your challenges, but rather than seeking the attention of strangers with this sort of performance, which is all that it is, I would really encourage you to take the new year of 2024 as a line to be drawn in the sand from which you begin your journey back from that place that you're currently at. I mean, there's a number of ways you could do that. Spend some time watching things that give you joy. Make a resolution that for the next month you're only going to post positive comments, praising what someone does, or at least talking respectfully and in a friendly manner about why you disagreed with something. You might find that it leaves you in a happier place, a bit more like the person I imagine you want to be, rather than this sort of fall back into a default behavior maybe. So you see, I mentioned this one example, but it's really a message to all of those who post these sorts of comments often. All right, let's move on to one of the people who was particularly offended by the episode where I talked about Sabine Felder's predictions for the world's response to climate change. Vapetio said, no, she is wrong, and she should not get involved with matter that is not her field. Now she started to act as a celebrity, having an opinion on everything. So, should Sabine Felder enjoy the same rights as anonymous handle Vapetio in being able to have an opinion? Well, yes. I mean, obviously, that's everybody's right. It's not just celebrities, is it? Of course, if you decide to have a strong opinion on a highly technical matter outside your competence and expertise, then sure, it'll be treated skeptically and with less value than the opinions of those who actually know what they're talking about. Was that one of those moments? No, she was predicting how the world would respond to climate change based on observations of the way that human societies tend to behave. Predicting the outcomes from aggregate human behaviour is not one of those areas where there's a field of scientific experts getting it right every time. Politicians try to predict it, journalists try to predict it, all of us do. Humans who are very much affected by their exterior environment, their culture, the fashions of their peer group and all of that, they are something that we can all have an opinion about. But the idea that because somebody is an expert in one field, they're not allowed ever again to express themselves on any other topic, unlike anonymous YouTube commenters, obviously, well, clearly that's nonsense. And of course, there are occasions when certain highly respected experts in one field go wading into another field of expertise and make fools of themselves by missing extremely basic tenets of the field that they're kind of disrespecting by presuming that they know everything. But for every one of those, there are plenty of others who listen to what the experts in the field say, look at the literature, having a good grasp of how to read and interpret much of it, and then they frame their views accordingly. Sabine Hosen Felder often says things that will annoy people in her own field of physics, as well as climate scientists and others, by puncturing what she considers to be flawed propositions or assumptions. She might be right, she might be wrong. I haven't yet seen her caught out doing so from a basic blunder that casts her as an incompetent in what she's discussing. No doubt she's made mistakes, as have we all at some point used to be allowed. So again, this was a missed opportunity from this commenter to explain what he disagreed with. Instead, he just did a bit of disparaging sort of pseudo name calling and suggested that she wasn't allowed to have an opinion. Not a great call, file with the previous commenter. Slower and Older also had strong opinions on the same video. So everyone agrees that people will only do what people have always done. Thanks. Great. Got it. Hundreds of millions live miserable lives while you lot yammer. Clothe the naked. Feed the hungry. Welcome the stranger. Thank God for the accidental birthright that breeds your self-satisfaction. Now come on, Slower and Older, say what you really think. What do we get from this comment? Well, he's angry about something. It may be that something touched a nerve, or it might be that this is his preferred mode of having a public presence, which is kind of a style choice. And it could well be the latter, because he seems to have chosen to interpret the video in a very specific way. He viewed it through a filter, in other words. Sabine was predicting, not advocating. She said what she thought people would do, not what she thought they should do. This comment clearly has no patience for such a distinction, as a number of other comments on the same video did likewise. Any discussion of a topic that isn't explicitly promoting one side or the other gets attacked by these people as being counter to the message. I had another similar comment saying that fossil fuel interests would be pleased that this video was sending out the message that it was okay to do nothing. Well, that video did no such thing, of course. Although, frankly, I doubt fossil fuel interests care two hoots about what happens on a tiny YouTube channel like this one. But it's the basic case. If you don't say only the campaign slogans or things that support them, then the other side gains power, the other side wins. And the logic of that position is that a sensible discussion on any issue becomes impossible, and we're all reduced to choosing a side and shouting slogans at each other. That's the only form of discourse that's left to us. Obviously, that is plain nonsense. The fact that campaigners will get angry at non-sloganeering communications is their problem, not ours, and they should probably avoid this channel in the first place. Slower and Older also, as you probably will have noticed, indulges in more theatrics. Hundreds of millions live miserable lives while you lot yammer. Clothe the naked, feed the hungry, welcome the stranger. One could always respond that leaving grumpy comments on YouTube neither clothes nor feeds anybody. And you really shouldn't make assumptions about who makes the most contributions in their own lives to various communities or on various causes. I'm certainly not presuming that Slower and Older, in spite of his stated preference for action, not words, is demonstrating that in his own life, since he seems to have plenty of time to post moaning comments on YouTube. Maybe accept that it's a part of life to discuss and debate issues as well as to take action. And it's actually a good thing to do so, even when you don't agree with what's being said. Getting the facts straight, looking properly at what should be done about those facts. It's the best way of avoiding taking the wrong action, the thing that you intuitively think is right but has all those unintended consequences, and that makes the discussion valuable. Gear Geek PDX 3566 had displeasure to express about the Trump being pushed off the ballot video. Stop grifting! Trump disqualified himself, not the law. Running for office doesn't give you immunity from the law. That comment is made up of 3 sentences. The second 2 would have made the commenter's point, but no, he wanted to make his scorn and contempt clear. So he added this "stop grifting" line. I don't think the word grifting means what you think it means. Engage in petty or small-scale swindling. You do know that's not the same as just saying something that you don't agree with, right? People selling a useless online course promising it's going to make you a millionaire. That's probably a grift. People pumping a new obscure crypto coin to their millions of fans planning to dump it as soon as they all start to buy it. Well, that's definitely a grift. But having an opinion about the legal merit of removing a candidate from the ballot, issue of public interest, well, no, that's an opinion. And it's an opinion shared by quite a lot of people, including many justices and senior politicians and others. Doesn't mean it must be right, because there are weighty people on the other side as well. But it means it just might be a serious discussion to be had, not one reducible to sloganeering. And on the rest of the comment, Trump disqualified himself. Well, it kind of depends. In the eyes of the electorate, maybe. I certainly thought that was likely on January the 7th, 2021, but that can only be tested by, having an election. If you contend he disqualified himself in law, then that's an argument that has to be settled in court, not just presumed. And that seems to be the issue here. He was not taken to court for insurrection. Prosecutors had that option. They decided to go a different route, presumably because they calculated the other route had more chances of success. So you still are left, again, as various legally qualified commenters have all pointed out, with a due process deficit. So, of course, running for office doesn't give you immunity from the law, although the FBI certainly exercised its discretion when it came to Hillary Clinton's email server. In the name of what was in the public interest, the law often exercises discretion based on the details and the context of a case. But fine, put that to one side. You still have to charge them with the crime that you're then going to use to stop them from running for office. People who think like this seem incapable of even noticing that their position is actually strengthening Trump more than anything else that they could have done. Because if you use bad process against your enemy, your claim to take the moral high ground is de facto defeated, diminished. Whatever that person's own flaws might be, you're counterbalancing them with your own. Both sides have to get past this ridiculous tendency to kick back against reality, wherever it doesn't conform with what you happen to want to believe. All right, let's finish with a couple of more respectful, substantive comments. One on my response to the trailer for the forthcoming Civil War movie, which I said seemed pitched to be in a completely different space to the current divisions in the United States. So that whichever side you were on in the real world, you might still be able to watch the movie and envisage yourself on the side that the movie portrays as the good guys, which is kind of in their interest if they want the biggest audience. Sean MTAC7573 commented, "I think that's what the movie will be for the most part. The pro-Second Amendment people would be against tyranny, which may explain the Texas and California team-up. If so, I still think they'll make the gun owners look like a lesser group." What I'm seeing in that comment is the suspicion that the Hollywood movie makers, even though they will try to do what I suggested, they will be incapable of not undermining the attempt with a few little digs. They just simply won't be able to help themselves. That may well be the case. You'd think that if there's a dictator in the White House, which is the apparent premise of a movie, you can't tell for sure just from the trailer, that would be the ultimate validation for all those gun owners. But I can imagine that's not the message the filmmakers are keen to put forward. My own instinct is that the lead characters, the journalist, and I presume it's her partner, that they are neutral. Hence the "we're Americans" and the befuddlement when the answer comes back, "what kind of Americans?" The enemy will be the divisiveness. There will be bad actions of people fighting on both sides. The heroes will be the ones caught in the middle trying to survive, who will be left at the end trying to pick up the pieces to reunite the country. I suppose that positioning would enable them to, as you suspect, cast gun owners in a bad light, at least for ones who seize the opportunity to do something stupid. And that could be done without implying that it's even the majority of gun owners, of course. Well, unlike so many of the questions that we discuss on this channel, we will get a definitive answer to this one when the movie comes out in 2 or 3 months. So let's see what happens. And finally, on my review of the most significant elections coming up in 2024, I had this comment from Ian Frame. "Enjoyed this video, Malin. Given Peter Zian's predictions of imminent Chinese demographic collapse, to what extent do you think that this fatally undermines its desire to exploit US weakness?" This is responding to my comments that if the US turns inwards and indulges in civil conflict, whether actual civil war or a variety of flavours just falling short of that, then it would be an obvious opportunity for China to seize upon, to take steps that it would not otherwise feel emboldened to do, especially in relation to Taiwan. And as Ian says, China's demographic realities are challenging, as they are for several other countries, and indeed will become so for our own in due course. It's more for them in the short term, though, because they don't permit immigration, so there isn't even that degree of flexibility. As I've said before, I think Peter Zian's predictions of Chinese collapse are overdramatic, listing a whole string of things that are wrong with a country, including major challenges that they face for sure, that will give them real problems, but they don't all necessarily add up to societal collapse, which happens relatively rarely. That sort of analysis tends to ignore the agency that countries have in solving those problems. We, as a human society, are going to have to find ways to create wealth in spite of the fact that we're all becoming older societies with stagnant and ultimately declining numbers. Do we think that in the age of automation and artificial intelligence that's an unsolvable problem? No. And China is focusing heavily on investing in that area, not by accident, I would suggest. I do think that if the US was able not to enfeeble itself with the death throes of an empire in decline, then it could remain a competitive constraint on China's desire to flex its muscles more and more on the world stage. I just look at America and I don't see any sign that it retains the will to do that. It's like videos I've seen of the two deer with locked horns doing whatever dominance fight they feel is really important to their place in the herd. Meanwhile, there's a lion that gets a clear run towards them unnoticed because they're utterly self-absorbed. This is it, America. That lion could be China, it could be Putin, it could be climate change, it could be all three, it could be a dozen different things. If you take your eyes off the world will fill in the vacuum you leave, and almost certainly not in ways that will serve your interests. And then one day you'll wake up and you'll say, what happened? I do think that China's numerous problems, while they won't make it collapse, will constrain it, which will mean that the game is America's to lose. If America can stay functional, it will at least delay for a significant period of time, the period before it's overtaken as the predominant world power. Alright, thanks for your comments, including the mean ones. Have a great 2024. I've said it before, all of you. See you soon.